Imagine a Christian college so desperate for worldly approval that congratulating an alumnus causes an institutional crisis. C.S. Lewis wrote that modern education is designed to create men without chests. In our ghastly simplicity, we castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful. But not at New St. Andrews College. We don't aspire to be the evangelical Harvard, selling our spiritual birthright for a pot of pious platitudes and federal financial aid, or doubling down on DEI until we are DEAD. Tucked away in the chimney of Idaho, surrounded by rolling wheat fields, pine forests, and fully intact bulls, we offer a Christian liberal arts education for outlaws and pirates. We don't feed the victimhood that afflicts young snowflakes, and we refuse to be manipulated by activists wielding their skin color and pronouns, or nice guys wielding their respectability and angst. And when the French are storming the Bastille, we won't tuck tail and run from empathetic mobs. No, we won't be steered by the emotional sabotage of the left, because we're anchored to the Word of God. Our aim is to graduate leaders who shape culture under the lordship of Christ. And when the Lord elevates them to positions of power, we'll celebrate the men and women of courage that we've launched into the cultural melee that surrounds us. We'll even congratulate faithful alumni of other institutions. So congratulations, Russ. You too, Pete.
But redemption is real.
And JD, tell Margaret we said hi.
I don't really care, Margaret.
New St. Andrews College. Don't be a steer.
In my hands, I have 5 of the most important questions that you need to be asking about Saudi Arabia. Yes, I do. Right here. Are they our friends? We don't know. Are they extreme Muslim countries that are a Muslim country that is enacting Sharia law? I believe that they are. Number 3, why does 2017 matter? And have they changed since then? Number 4, what is Trump going to do with that plane? I kind of want to.
That was the one I was wondering about.
That's the one that everybody's worried about. Yeah. And how should Christians be involved with Saudi Arabia? And 6, just for good measure. What? Huh? Our producers are talking. Did I do something wrong? Oh, okay. You guys messed up number 6. Number 6. Who's going to win a war between them and Qatar if they've ever fight? I don't know. We'll see.
What? You just threw it away?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. What? I have a digital version of it too.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the 6.
Wow. 6
things you need to be asking. Yeah, James Rayment is here to deal with all 5 of those. The 6th one, I don't think he's going to answer that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And James was just over in Saudi Arabia. So
he's been.
We have firsthand information. We have a reporter who was on the ground. Yeah. He spoke with Trump and the Saudi kings, and we have all the information. Yeah. Nobody else has.
He's still got Saudi Arabian sand in his hair.
I'm sure that they're listening to this conversation right now.
Are you looking for the Office 365 or Suite competitor for the parallel economy? Look no further than Pax Mail. Email? Check. Office Suite with Word, Excel, and PowerPoint alternatives? Check. Calendars, contacts, appointments, and forms? Check. Privacy matters. We don't sell ads. We safeguard your data like it's our own. We also believe in protecting innocence. Pax Mail believes that every child deserves a chance at life. That's why we use a portion of our proceeds to support initiatives to save children from abortion. Join the movement. Be part of something bigger. Help us build a parallel economy and keep the money in the family. Join Pax Mail and let's build a brighter future together. Visit paxmail.cc today. That's paxmail.cc today.
We use those guys.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, Pax.
We use them.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
They don't let like the Saudi Arabians into our
unless they're friends. If we, once we answer the 5 questions,
the 5 questions, okay,
6. Once we answer those,
the security questions,
then maybe
they can join our Pax Mail Club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bonet Music Academy. You know, this is one of your favorite ads that I have to read every week. I get to read every week. What's the most important thing you do each week?
Worship.
And what happens a lot of the service in the worship?
We sing.
So if music is taking up most of that most important thing you do, We want to know, how musical is your home and your kids' curriculum? Bonet Music Academy teaches live music lessons in Music Idaho.
That's true.
It's
I like that.
It's the new name. Music
like
Idaho,
that.
Moscow, Idaho, and online. Currently serving 28 different states. At BMA, we teach music as a language, and that means you get voice and instrument training. This helps each student get really good at reading, learning, and practicing all kinds of music. We also partner with Christian schools and co-ops to expand their curriculum needs. So go to bonetma.com/crosspolitic. That's BOHNETMA.com/crosspolitic and set up a free consultation to talk about your family's or your school's needs. And as a bonus, the bonus, they're going to tell you 2 funny stories about Gabe in the consultation. I'm still waiting to hear back. There's like how you switched to the empty seat. Yeah. 2 funny stories about Gabe not being here.
Yeah.
I still want to hear from our audience some of those stories.
They should send them in.
Sean Bonet is telling people.
You know what? Take your phone out, record it on a memo.
Yeah.
If you don't have an iPhone, what's wrong with you?
Right.
So just record a memo, send it to contact@crosspolitic, and we'll play it on the show.
I would love to hear what some of the funny stories are that Sean is telling people.
That
about
would be
Gabe.
great.
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah, well, people watch it every day on the show. They got enough fun stories.
Anyway, so tell Siri to make a reminder to go to bonetma.com/crosspolitic. Again, that's BOHNETMA.com/crosspolitic and schedule a free meeting today. Like Knox said, James Rayment is here with us via the Zooms. He was born in England, but has lived in Seattle for 14 years, which makes him really fun person. With his wife and 5 kids. I didn't know he had 5 kids. Wow. Since 2012, James has been building relationships with Muslims in Seattle and around the world. Because of this ministry, he founded the Al Maida Initiative, a Christian nonprofit that equips the church to understand and communicate better with Muslims on a range of religious, political, and worldview issues. His goal is to create genuine friendships without shying away from the exclusivity of Jesus' message. James, thanks for joining us again on Cross Politic.
Thank you for having me back. It is good to be here.
Absolutely.
So how was your meeting with Trump? How'd it go?
It was pretty casual,
Okay.
Small
and
talk.
Saudi Prince, everything went well.
Well, that was great. We just talked about video games.
I'm surprised you didn't talk about Elon Musk's new robot since he was showing them off to everybody over there.
Yeah, we just kind of got caught up talking about the new Dragon Ball Z theme park they're making out there and just didn't get onto anything else.
Got distracted.
That's a joke, right?
No, there's really a Dragon Ball Z theme park coming to Saudi Arabia.
Wait, for real?
Yes.
How does that work? Wait, hold on. They're a Muslim nation, right?
Yes.
90%. There's like 4% Christians there, if I remember correctly. How does that sneak inside of how does Dragon Ball Z sneak inside of Saudi Arabia?
The same way everything else sneaks inside Saudi Arabia as well. What you're going to find if you go to Saudi Arabia is that all of the American brands, all the American products are there as well. I went to Medina, which is where the Muslim state started, and 5 minutes drive from the tomb of Muhammad, there is a Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay,
love it.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
So American culture is everywhere in Saudi Arabia. In fact, I would say if you go to a mall in Saudi Arabia, there are ways they are doing American culture better than America is currently doing American culture.
Oh, like what?
Yeah, how?
Like what?
So if you remember what it used to be like to go to the mall here, where it was kind of like big and clean, lots of stores. It was kind of a social thing for people, and the American mall experience has declined. That is very much alive and well there. Anything you could find in an American mall, you can find in a Saudi mall. And it's kind of a bigger deal there because it's so hot. So indoor hangout places are kind of have more longevity there than they do, say, somewhere like the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. Interesting.
So then I guess at least kind of go ahead, Pastor.
Why do you think that is, James? I'm curious. I mean, other than the weather. Okay, so I get the weather, but it's hot in the South too. And I don't know that mall culture is, exploding in Georgia or Texas.
I think basically Saudi Arabia has become a very, very international culture over the last decade or so. I mean, it has parts of it always have been. So like Jeddah and Mecca and Medina have always been kind of international because all the Muslims go there for like Hajj and stuff.
Yeah.
But then Dammam, Riyadh, because they've done so much business with America over the last, 30 years, American culture has become a big part of Saudi culture. And what you have to understand is that the modern Saudi state is basically built off this very lucrative economic relationship that America has had with Saudi Arabia. So their nation has largely been built by Aramco, which is the Arabian American oil company. So people generally like America there. They realize that having a mutually beneficial relationship has been good for them and good for us, and they want to see that continue.
So the culture, would you say, is more American than Muslim?
I wouldn't say it's more American than Muslim, but the culture over the last 10 years has shifted exponentially. So if you went to Saudi Arabia in 2016, all the women would be wearing hijabs. There was no music played publicly. Women couldn't drive. And the call to prayer was loud. Everybody was very visibly Muslim. Now it isn't like that. There's music. There are women wearing not hijabs. There's music being played places. The country has transformed completely.
What's changed that? Because America has been transformed since 2016, probably even sooner than that too. But so what's changed it? Has it been the kind of the globalistic idea, or is it the influx of Christianity of America that's changing that?
So there's a number of factors. The first thing you have to understand, though, is that Saudi Arabia has not I think what people imagine, it's you start from Muhammad's time and it's been this hardcore Muslim country until 10 years ago. And that's not the way it has worked. So back in the 70s, Saudi Arabia was already starting to become a lot more liberal with its laws. If you read The Seven Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence, he describes it like this cycle where these hardcore Muslims come out of the middle of the desert, take over almost everything, and then are dashed to pieces by these wealthy coastal merchants on the edges, because Arabs historically have always been traders, always. And so they're always interacting with different cultures, always going in and out of the rest of the world and making their money that way. So Saudis have always been people who've kind of been going to other parts of the world and doing business. But in 1974, I believe, their king was assassinated by his nephew Faisal. King Faisal was assassinated by a guy called Faisal. And then Mecca was taken over by terrorists. And one of their central charges is that the Saudi royal family was not taking Islam seriously enough. So the next king, King Fahd, created something called the Basic Law of Saudi Arabia in the early 80s. And that's the thing that banned women from driving, made women veil all the time, banned music, stuff like that. And that has been the basis of the Saudi Arabia of popular imagination. So there are a lot of people who were born before that time who have felt powerless and resentful towards these things. But then in 2013, the king of Saudi Arabia basically made a policy where they were going to send all of their students to study internationally. And so they've been sending their people all over the world. And now you have a Saudi Arabia where 70% of the people have studied internationally. They have been exposed to the world, and they're sick of having these heavy-handed religious rules of a very specific interpretation of Islam foisted on them by religious police, right? Having people going around making sure everybody's obeying the rules. Everybody's sick of it. So in 2017, Mohammed bin Salman was made crown prince, and he said, word for word, at least in the English translation, Saudi Arabia is going to go back to what it once was, a moderate Muslim country that is open to all religions and open to the world. We're not going to spend the next 30 years of our life hiding from these extremists. We're going to destroy them today. And he's kept to his word, right? Women have been given permission to drive. Women can now travel without a male guardian. The hijab is no longer enforced. People are playing music. There's concerts. There's movie theaters. The country is really opening up.
So would you say that, I mean, you kind of dealt with the 2017 issue already, and that's continuing. That's not looking like it's going to change then.
No, it's speeding up. And I think a large part of this is they have a model next door to them in the United Arab Emirates, which is also liberalized, and they're doing great with that. People like going there, people are going there on tourism, and they're thriving from that. And Saudi Arabia wants in on some of that action too.
And so you would consider Saudi Arabia a friend of America?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. And not in a sort of marriage of convenience kind of way either. Now, again, just to be clear, I'm a Christian. I believe in the exclusivity of Jesus. I believe Muslims need Jesus. But I would kind of put the sort of modern inner city Riyadh culture on the same kind of level you'd put someone, say, like Jordan Peterson. Somebody who likes us, who believes in what we have to bring to the world, who is sort of a natural co-belligerent in cultural wars, and has genuine affection for us. That's not forced, is not part of some agenda. I spoke to so many people in Riyadh over the last week, and there for sure there are people in Saudi Arabia who are religious extremists. Like, those people exist, but the sort of current political inner city culture there is pro-America, friendly towards Christianity.
Why is Saudi Arabia, I guess, important to America? Because it seems like for Trump, both of his trips after he became president of the United States in 2016, his first trip out of country was to Saudi Arabia. And that parallel has happened again. He's become president. His first trip out of the country is again to Saudi Arabia. Why do they matter to America? What's so important about him getting to Saudi Arabia right away after he becomes president?
Well, I think, first of all, if you look at Trump's sensibilities and personality, he essentially is a white Arab sheikh. Like, he really likes gold in his decor.
I see.
His personality, I think, naturally fits with the Gulf Arabs, and that's also why they really like him, right? Aside from all the other agenda, I would say that, you know, a Trump Tower in Saudi Arabia fits perfectly with the landscape of the things that are there. They vibe naturally.
I saw the little video clip of Trump walking into the king's palace, and he says, "Nice house."
Nice house. Yeah, I saw that.
Nice house.
So the other part of that is that it's a key player for Middle Eastern stability as well. So because Saudi Arabia still contains Mecca and Medina, the two holiest sites in Islam, they are the sort of de facto leader of the Sunni Muslim world, and Sunni Islam makes up like 90% of the Muslim world. So if Saudi Arabia normalizes with Israel, that's kind of the last big domino to fall in peace and stability in the region. And peace and stability means more money. It means more trade. It means it's good for everyone, right? People talk about war profiteering all the time, but peace is far better for business for everybody. And that's what Trump wants. Trump wants business. So if you're invested in the Middle East, and Saudi Arabia is our largest oil supplier outside of ourselves, they export like 16% of the world's oil supply, which really actually increases or decreases the price of gas, then it's good to have a good relationship with Saudi Arabia for that reason.
And then Qatar too. So what's relationship with Qatar?
Qatar, I know much less about, if I'm honest with you. I've never been to Qatar, but I think Qatar, it has a much smaller population than Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Like, it's basically a city state. And because they're very rich from oil money, they don't and there's a small population, they don't have to make their wealth go as far as, say, Saudi Arabia or UAE does in order to prosper. So I think Qatar is good at positioning itself in the middle of all these, you know, bargains between countries and trades, and, you know, on the one hand has been being a safe haven for Hamas, but has also been a key part in negotiating with Hamas as well.
What does it look like for you brought up Israel just a moment ago, and you said basically there was, if they can somehow get along for the most part, then it would kind of tamper the relationships or the potential fallout with Islam. What does that look like? What does that look like for them to get along? What does that mean?
So basically, the conflict you have in a large part in the modern Middle East is that you've had these nation state structures imposed on the Arab world from outside.
Yeah.
And essentially, Islam doesn't really believe in nation states inherently. So if you're committed to a hardcore Muslim ideology, the existence of Saudi Arabia, the existence of Egypt, the existence of Iraq and Syria, and especially Israel, will offend your sensibilities, because the idea is to have all Muslims be one geopolitical entity. And once Israel is normalized, it's basically everyone admitting that we're never going back to that, and that we're settling for nation states, and we're going to try and make the most out of nation states as well. And Saudi Arabia is a country that has very much tried to make the most out of being a nation state, as has UAE, those countries have succeeded in doing that. And so once they've fully normalized with Israel, it's basically signaling that the Arab world is moving towards Westphalian nationalism.
Wow.
Man, I'm looking at this. $600 billion is what Trump was able to get them to invest for the most part in America. And it's just crazy. Like, I don't understand, with a nation so wealthy and has so much money, why the trade? And why are we giving them so much military? I mean, we're going to give them, I think what was it, guys? He said that he was going to give a couple $1 billion. We're giving them all sorts of here it goes right here. Air and missile defenses, coastal security, Air Force advancement and space capabilities, border security and land force modernization. I mean, we're going in, giving them a lot of stuff that they're buying off of us. Even so much as, like, potential. They're talking about aircraft they don't know because of the space and the way it's set up. Why aren't they more militarily capable if they have so much money?
They are generally very military capable, especially from a technology perspective, but they are right across the water from Iran, which is their arch nemesis. So Iran has been a leading source of instability in the region, because Iran,
I get it,
doesn't want to be in this nation state mode. It wants to be in this sort of all the Muslim world led by the successors of Ali mode, right? There's a Sunni Shia divide there already, right? So you've got inter-Sunni struggles, which Saudi Arabia is going to be on the receiving end of, but then you've got the Sunni Shia idea as well. So Iran wants to position itself as the true defenders of Islam. So if Saudi is considering normalizing relationships with Israel, Iran is the one saying, no, we should never normalize relationships with Israel, and all true Muslims should stand behind us. And there's a certain power in that. So Saudi does have some belligerent neighbors, and it wants to make sure that it can defend itself against those both. And so the Iran has a proxy regime in Yemen with the Houthis, who have in the past been at war with Saudi Arabia.
That's interesting. Pastor, I'm taking up all the stuff.
I know.
I'm looking at this
I'm just
too.
learning. I'm just in school right now.
So can I guess part of what I want to know too is, who's a more powerful nation, Iran or Saudi Arabia?
Right now, I would say Saudi Arabia. I think there's probably some, rough parity between the two, but maybe Iran has a more sort of self-sufficient military than Saudi Arabia would have, because I think Saudi's military still has been reliant for a long time on US support. So because so much of our oil comes from Saudi Arabia, The US has military bases there. It's using air defense to protect the region by itself. So what Saudi Arabia would like is for their defense to become more and more self-sufficient and not dependent on American protection.
So, do you think that we're making a mistake? If I understand the way you're talking about this, us helping build up Saudi Arabia, this is weird because we didn't do the same thing with, unless with Biden, we kind of did when it came to Russia and Ukraine. We kind of fought a proxy war there. Do you think this is kind of the same situation between Iran and Saudi Arabia, where Trump is positioning to strengthen Saudi Arabia so that he's kind of having a proxy war set up where it's like, okay, we're making a strong defense here, keeps them over there, and then hopefully Saudi Arabia gets to lead the rest of the Muslim nations in this direction with Israel?
Yeah, I think that's a large part of it. Certainly that they're an ally against Iran, but I don't think Trump wants war with Iran. I think what Trump would really like would be for Iran to join the party and not be at war.
Yeah. Isn't this the play the United States has been trying for decades?
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't like and in what way is this new or different? I mean, I guess it seems like the play has been, we bring American culture, we bring Western culture into the Middle East, we westernize, it liberalizes, and then that brings stability to the Middle East. But we did that in Iran in the 70s and before, and that and then there was the revolution. I think we attempted to kind of do that with Iraq after the Iraq War. That fell apart. I guess does this new situation, does Saudi Arabia give you more hope that we're actually going to succeed this time?
Yeah, so I would say that Saudi Arabia has been quietly going on in the background undramatically this entire time.
Yeah.
And I think provides the exact model of intervention that we should have as a country. So the thing with Iraq is we went in there, we tried to install our own government and just change it from the top down. If you look at Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, what has that looked like? It's looked like we're not messing with their government structure, but we are providing opportunities for trade and mutually beneficial situations.
It's kind of like nationalism.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what it is.
Yeah.
Is that not what we did in Iran though in the 70s?
So part of the problem with Iran is that there was, because of the Cold War, we were meddling in other countries to try and get things across against the Soviets. So when Iran is not selling the West oil at the price we want, then we start fomenting revolution there. Why? Because we've got to deal with this now because the Soviets are on the horizon. Okay. So we didn't treat other countries like sovereign nations, because we have this very cynical strategy of trying to defeat the Soviets. And so we've never intervened in Saudi Arabia in the same way we've intervened in Iran. Okay. So as a result of that, the relationship between America and Saudi Arabia is one that is enduring, is mutually beneficial, and has been a source of prosperity for both countries.
Yeah. That makes sense. So you're saying basically in Iran, to whatever extent there was a outward facing similarity to what we're doing with Saudi Arabia currently, we were also on the backside sabotaging that very relationship, trying to create crisis because we thought that somehow that would destabilize the Soviet Union and the communist bloc.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. I'm just asking something. My in-laws actually were in Tehran in the late 70s, and my father-in-law was involved in. He was working for Westinghouse, which is a defense contract company, and was over there living there with a bunch of other Americans, training Iranians, on how to use our defense systems. And throughout the, and you've seen pictures, no doubt, of Iran in the 70s where they weren't wearing the hijabs.
Very Western.
It looked very Westernized. And, modern clothing, the driving, the kind of things you're talking about. And then suddenly you had that revolution.
Locked it down.
But you're saying we were kind of working both sides. And so we sabotaged that. Whereas in Saudi Arabia, to your knowledge, to our knowledge, we're not doing that this time. We're not playing games. We're actually treating them as an actual sovereign nation, not monkeying or trying to manipulate a nation, but actually trying to treat them as a sovereign nation. And that's what makes it different.
Yeah. And certainly, if you look at Trump's speech to the Saudis, that's basically what he's saying there, right? That it's like we've had these people trying to do nation building and start these corrupt liberal institutions, but the real prosperity and freedom in the region is built by people like yourselves who are pairing, your history with the future and building your own nations.
So one of the things it looked like, it was so weird watching Trump's greeting compared to Biden's greeting. Like Trump comes over there and it's like everybody is on the streets, everybody is welcoming him as he gets off the tarmac. Biden gets there and there's like a few lower level people who are greeting him, and it's like, okay, great. They didn't seem to appreciate Biden the same way, and they have this huge respect for Trump, I guess because he's kind of like one of them in one sense. But what's the
why didn't they respect Biden the Sheikh?
Right. Because he's doing the same things in one sense.
So Biden basically publicly referred to Saudi Arabia as a bad actor. So he was saying, the things they fund, the things they do, they're not good people, they're bad people.
Okay.
Then midterm elections are coming. Oil prices are looking high.
James, pardon me. Why do you think he said that in the first place? Why do you think Biden would say that out loud? What was he doing with that?
So I think there is a large part of the, left-wing establishment that would look at some of the sort of social norms in Saudi Arabia and would not like them, right? So in its history, there's been all these rules about women's rights. Obviously, they're anti-LGBTQ, and they're for all intents and purposes have had a authoritarian system over them. So, and then they tend to imprison political opponents, right?
But the left also loves the Palestinians.
But the Palestinians don't have any power.
Okay. Okay.
That they want, probably.
Yeah, I'm just trying to sort that, because it feels like they're multiculturalists. Why don't they, in a lot of ways the leftists are yay Islam. Yay Islam, even though it seems backwards, because you're right, they're actually very anti-LGBT, and anti-women's rights. But at the same time, a lot of leftists talk we respect all the cultures, we respect all the cultures. So I'm just wondering why is it different for Saudi Arabia, especially if Saudi Arabia is kind of in the process of liberalizing, becoming more westernized. And if they are kind of what you describe, sort of a Jordan Peterson-esque, I don't know, I hear you saying, describing something almost like a liberal Protestant, sort of somebody who has a Western values, but it's just sort of with a Muslim facade. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint, but I think typically the way both leftists and Islamists look at the world is through a sort of revolutionary framework.
Yes.
So, and a large part of what that's doing is trying to mount all the world's problems together and have one giant state level solution for all of the things at once, right? It's trying to solve all problems at once is the sort of leftist way of looking at the world. And that's generally the sort of Islamist way of looking at the world as well. Somewhere like Saudi Arabia or UAE does not have that outlook. It has a much more pragmatic approach to the world. Let's try solving problems one problem at a time. Let's try solving our issues one issue at a time. And I think because they're sort of wealthy and successful, that's part of why a lot of people, and not part of the revolution, that's why a lot of people don't like them.
So maybe like back to the point you were making earlier, like they're actually interested in a kind of nationalism.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is not happy for leftists.
Oh, you should have seen Trump when he was there talking about. I mean, it was almost he could have paralleled the same statement that he gave us in America to them, and they were eating it up.
Make Saudi Arabia great again.
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. So he was asking why did Biden get such a lame greeting, and I interrupted you. So he had made some snide comments. Saudi Arabia's, they're bad actors. We don't like them. Keep going.
Yeah. So then when oil prices are high, he then plans a state visit to try and get a better deal on oil. And the Saudis are like, no, we're not giving you a better price on oil. And so the Obama foreign policy, for whatever reason, in its sort of reimagining of global politics, is trying to move away from Saudi Arabia and closer towards Iran for whatever reason. And Trump is much more our allies are our allies, and let's celebrate them, let's invest in them, let's do stuff with them. And I think that's the sort of simple source of what's going on there.
And I think you have to take into consideration too that Biden administration was pushing all their social justice woke stuff on everybody they possibly could one way or another. I'm guessing that Saudi Arabia probably doesn't want a whole bunch of pride parades running down the street. I could be wrong. Maybe they do, and I just don't know about it, but I'm guessing they don't want that culture at all rubbing off on them. And the fact that Trump isn't pushing that makes them say, yes, give us our nationalism. We don't want the globalism.
Yeah.
That's really interesting too. And to think if in a weird way links up hardcore leftists and hardcore Islamists, who don't believe in nation states, who believe in a kind of imperialism. Obviously, it has a completely different on the ground manifestation because cosmology. Iran doesn't want pride parades either, I assume. But they have this shared kind of cosmology, or this shared idea that that nations are the enemy, and a kind of imperial globalistic assumptions. I mean, I don't know if Iran sees it that way, but at least I can see how the leftists, that would make sense of why Obama or others would start cozying up more to Iran than they would Saudi Arabia.
I guess there's a couple questions for you too. What in the world were you doing there, man? And how do Christians need to be thinking about kind of everything that's taking place with Saudi Arabia? How can we be involved in this?
Yeah. So I run a 501c3 called the Al-Maida Initiative. We're a Christian 501c3, and we facilitate friendship and worldview conversations between Christians and Muslims. And Muslims will ask me all the time, yeah, but what you really want is to see me convert to Christianity, right? And there's, yes, of course I do. Yeah. But I believe in the sovereignty of God, which means that my job is not to try and change anyone's mind. My job is to speak the truth in love, to love my neighbor, to listen to my neighbors, to invest in my neighbors, and changing of hearts and minds is God's job. So our goal is to have a friendly, honest conversation, get past our misconceptions, both Christians getting past their misconceptions of Islam and Muslims getting past their misconceptions about Christianity. And I think when that happens, there'll be lots of Muslims that become Christians. And perhaps you, the Muslim, think that many Christians will become Muslim, but we should certainly have this free, open, honest conversation, right? It's not pushy. It's not preachy. It happens over food, where everyone is free to be honest about what they actually think. And the results are in God's hands. That's what we've been doing in Seattle since 2018. Through that time, I've met lots of Saudis. Some of them are Saudi Christians. They actually exist. And then lots of them are Muslims. So I was simply going to Saudi Arabia to visit my friends, both Christian and Muslim, all across the country. And what I want to do is I am hoping to open up a branch of my ministry nonprofit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and to be able to have these conversations openly in Saudi.
Is that even legal there? Like, is it against? I think Christianity is allowed there, but there's no churches publicly. Is that right?
Yeah, there's no churches publicly, but there are house churches there, and the government basically seems to have a don't ask, don't tell policy. So they're not going to make a big deal out of you meeting in someone's home. And by the way, a lot of the homes are massive. So, a house church can be like, 100 people. It's not like tiny. But the government is right now leaving Christians alone, both Saudi Christians and American Christians over there. And the things that are banned out there would be preaching publicly and distributing religious literature. Those things would be banned over there. Neither of which things we do as a nonprofit. So it actually seems to me like there's some legal framework where we might be able to operate openly in Saudi Arabia and have that be welcome there. I'm not sure yet. It's still a bit of a it's up in the air, but that's the goal.
I'm not a huge fan of, I'm a Christian, I think covenantally, and I'm just not a huge fan of being so closely tied with a nation that has such a suppression on Christianity in the public environment, right? Like is it illegal for anybody to convert from Islam to Christianity there?
Formally, yes, but they're leaving people alone when they do.
Right.
So, so the question you have to ask yourself as a Christian in somewhere like Saudi Arabia is the lives of Christians have gotten significantly better since 2017. So the question is, are you going to do the sort of like, the liberal thing and say, we won't have any association with you until you do exactly what we want? Or are you going to make friends with people who are actually kind of willing to work with you to some extent and plausibly make things way better for everybody? Like having churches in Saudi Arabia could actually be a thing within, the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years or so. That's much more likely to happen with Christians from the West actively engaged and invested in Saudi Arabia than it is if we're, sitting all the way back in our ivory towers and lecturing the Saudis.
Okay, I got it. I took it. You punched me in the face. It's okay. I get it.
I think you said, don't be a perfectionist.
Yeah, no, I get it.
We can be an incrementalist.
But you know what I do? But part of what I want to do is be able to open up that reality more and more. And if they're, really want to make
that's
plays,
like people like James need to do.
Right,
do the kind
absolutely.
of thing he's looking at doing is everybody needs to keep pushing the envelope.
Yeah, sure. I don't want to covenant with them, right? Because they're not Christians. We don't share the same God. So I don't want to covenant, but I do want to open up opportunities for guys like him to be able to do this and for churches to be able to get planted over there. And I think a lot of that can work with free trade. I just question the idea of them investing $600 billion into the American economy. And we got Christians that can't function fully like Christians in their environment. And whatever they want from us, I'm like, is the trade worth it? Are we getting a good deal out of it? And are we making room there for people like James to be able to operate?
Right.
There's no can't hand out any Christian literature. I mean, okay. How do
you can't hand out any Muslim literature either? FYI.
Yeah, but Christianity is better. So
this actually there's a little bit of a rabbit trail here, James, but I'm curious. We've talked a little bit on the show about Epic City in East Plano, Texas. I'm curious if this is coming up much in your conversations with your Muslim friends, and sort of how maybe how you think of it, but also maybe how others are thinking about it. I mean, because in some ways, Muslims might understand a little better than a lot of Americans why a bunch of American Christians might not want such a thing. Like Muslims might understand that because in Muslim culture, they understand like we're a Muslim nation. We don't want your churches here. And so if this is a Christian nation, would you want mosques here? But I'm curious. I mean, what are you hearing? And also just what are your thoughts on that in terms of evaluating the state of American culture?
Okay. So just the only real context I've had here is two, right? I've had people from the area reach out to us as a ministry, ask for our advice.
Yeah.
My advice would be vote against it, and if they build it, move there.
Okay.
Then the conversations I've had with Muslims are actually only with Muslims in like Abu Dhabi,
Okay.
so Emirati Muslims. And by the way, Abu Dhabi legally allows churches to operate there,
Okay.
build buildings,
Yeah.
preach the gospel. Again, you don't publicly go out and preach in the mall or anything, but you can have church services. You can talk about, whatever you want to anyone there. And the government does not control what's said. There are reformed churches operating in the United Arab Emirates.
Okay.
And my Muslim friends there are like, are you guys crazy letting this happen in America?
Yeah. That's what I was wondering.
So they're like, and because essentially there's a war, there's like a ideological civil war in several directions in the Muslim world. And these people are not aligned with the kind of people that want to take over the West.
Right. Yeah. So you see, I mean, number one, so some of your Muslim friends definitely understand, like, yeah, why would you want to build a Muslim city, a Muslim community? Why would you want that in a Christian nation? That is an invitation for invasion.
Yeah, that's very, very much, especially in UAE and a lot of modern Saudis, they kind of see it that way.
Do they I'm kind of getting a little bit further off the point, but I think it's connected and interesting. It's like one of the things we've talked about recently on the show is related to that has just been I think the slowness of many American Christians to understand the potency of signs, of flags, of statues, monuments. The left seems to understand this a lot better. They've been tearing down our statues, and it's sort of started to get annoying for a lot of American Christians, but I'm not sure they quite understand the full significance of it. It's sort of like, it's annoying because, like, just stop it already. And yeah, I don't think that guy that you hate was as bad as you think. And he was an American guy, so leave him alone. But like, I don't know if they understand, like, that's a signal of war. It's a signal of invasion. It's a signal of conquering. Historically, that's what you do. When you conquer a nation, you tear down the old statues, you build new statues, you pull down the old flags and you put up the new flags. And the left has been doing that now for a decade or more, and putting up particularly the pride flags. Yeah. And I think for some reason it's taken, like, the Hindu statue in Houston, this epic city in Texas, for me to sort of like, actually, like, me, I think personally, even like sort of viscerally say, when you put up that flag, that rainbow flag, that tranny flag, you're actually declaring war on me,
absolutely,
and on my kids, and on my way of life. Like, that's
my nation.
Like that. Like that's what soldiers do. Like that's what armies do. Like, there's always a guy carrying the flag, the ensign of the military flag, and
is why idolatry was illegal in Israel.
Right. Right. But I think this applies again to monuments. It applies to cities. It applies to the kind of church buildings you can build and how big they can be, or whatever, like city codes. Like, all of that none of that's neutral.
That's right.
And I think we've been very, very slow. I'm curious though, do your Muslim friends see that? Do they see the potency? Do they say, do they notice the rainbow flags? Do they notice the tranny flags? Do they notice these monuments and so on? And I'm curious, again, your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And again, Islam is not monolithic. So you're going to have very different worldviews within the Muslim world right now, as there always have been different worldviews in the Muslim world. But yes, for sure, they are very keenly aware of the symbolism of things, and will read a lot into that. And I would say that the average sort of inner city Saudi and Emirati would basically be very politically similar to somebody on the American right in what they see happening in the world and where they want to see the world go.
Yeah. Would they see that though as like a sign of invasion, a sign of like, we're coming for your children?
Yeah. I think the Emiratis especially they've talked about America less, so they're talking more about sort of England, and they would see very much what's happening in England as this invasion of It's sort of like Islamist Muslim Brotherhood types, and they're saying, you need to listen to us. These people are dangerous. What they do is illegal here, and you shouldn't let them do what they're doing in your countries.
Right.
So then they look at what's their take on Dearborn, Michigan, because I guess there's a couple questions here too. You got Dearborn, which seems to be the American model for how you go ahead and take over a city, right? When you look at that, and do Muslims, so every night at 9:00, I hear church bells in my community. They ring. I don't think to get up and call the police and say there's a noise violation. It feels very natural to have that. And I know it's a Christian win because the air itself says Christians are here and they're allowed to make this sound every night at 9:00. So then the Muslim call to prayer, would they had a Muslim call to prayer in America that was public, like church bells, would they consider that a win? Like, oh, we've finally taken over. We got it.
There's going to be a lot of sliding scale on nuance of like how that is.
Because if we get church bells in Saudi Arabia, I consider that a win. That's a win for me. Yeah. A win is a win.
Straight up.
So that's
totally.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, you're going to have a sliding scale of how people, feel about that, right? So even you saying that, right? There's a way. So for example, Christianity is not a ultimate threat to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates as a nation,
right?
Because why? Does the gospel say Saudi Arabia can't exist? Does it say the United Arab Emirates can't exist? No. Does it say they have to stop speaking Arabic and start speaking English? No. Right. None of that. Does it mean you have to delete all your heroes from history and replace them with our heroes? No, it does not mean that at all, right? The filter you look at your history through is probably going to change somewhat.
Yeah.
But in our classical Christian education, we talk about the Romans and the Greeks all the time as part of our heritage, right? Do we believe they're holy individuals? No. Do we respect them and draw from them? Yes. So what we need to do is help Arab nations and Muslim nations be able to take a Christian filter to their history and find the things that they can celebrate as well from their history, right? Because it's not all bad. If our message is West good, East bad, it's stupid. It's childish. It's unbiblical. But the gospel is going to redeem our culture and our heritage, right? So Christianity going forward in Saudi Arabia is not going to make them Americans. It's not going to destroy their culture. In fact, it's going to redeem their culture. So one thing that happened in Abu Dhabi when Trump got there, I don't know if you guys saw this. You have this slightly bizarre sight of these girls like waving their hair at Donald Trump.
Yeah. And
so people in the Muslim world are freaking out about this and say it's, Western capitulation. But it's not. This is an ancient dance called the Khalij, which is native to the region, which has been practiced for hundreds and maybe more than 1,000 years. It's this radical Islam that shuts down people's culture and tries to cover it all up.
Interesting.
And as that extreme Islam loses its grip, these native indigenous cultures start to represent themselves again, right? And that's the kind of effect that the gospel will have. So a church being in Saudi Arabia, hey, we don't actually need bells there. Maybe we just have a Christian call to prayer, right? Maybe that's going to inhabit its own form. Like, but
our Father.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Abi. So again, this is why I have an Arabic logo for our organization, because Christianity is not opposed to Arab and Muslim cultures, right? So Christianity is not an invading force that wants to dissolve these things. It wants to enrich these things.
Right.
Islam, on the other hand, at least the Islam is believed by the sort of Salafis, the Wahhabis, the Muslim Brotherhood types, does do that. Everyone has to pray in Arabic. Everyone has to face Mecca. Everybody, it essentially, the more seriously you take it, the more it kind of becomes this force for erasing culture and art and language and making everything uniform. Yeah. So Christianity going in Arabia and Islam coming to the West, depending on the form of that, very different outcomes.
That's really good,
That was
James.
good,
I mean, because you're absolutely right. And I mean, all idols do that. All idols destroy our humanity. All idols destroy human culture, and Jesus Christ redeems humans. He redeems human culture. He heals human culture. I when I preached through Acts the last couple years, one of the chapters that just hit me the most was chapter 16, where Paul is in Philippi, this famous Roman colony, the colony of Rome, and so, but it's in Macedonia, Greece, and this site of this old battle. The Roman Civil War was there, and that's where Octavian won, and was on his way to then becoming Caesar Augustus, and so has this glorious history. And so they take their Roman citizenship there really, really seriously, and it's this high pride they have. But Paul gets there, and there's this. They've got this marketplace, and there's this slave girl possessed by a demon who's fortune telling, and just day after day after day, and Paul's getting worked up about it, and finally cast out the demon, and then the businessmen stir up this mob, and they bring Paul and Silas to the magistrates, and the magistrates have them beaten and throw in prison without any kind of due process. And you have and then there, of course, you have the earthquake. The jailer is saved in the middle of the night because Paul and Silas somehow convince all the prisoners to stay in the jail, and saves the jailer's life. And the next day they say, okay, Paul and Silas, you need to leave. The magistrates do, and Paul and Silas say, wait a second, we're Roman citizens and we were treated very poorly. We would like a personal escort. And the magistrates hear that and they think, oh no. But the whole story is this. It's this revelation that for all the pride they have in being Roman, they are horrible.
Romans. Yeah.
They're horrible. Like their idolatry of their Romanness, or whatever, Caesar Augustus cult or whatever. It's like it's destroying them. It's creating slave girls possessed by demons. It's creating businessmen that are shysters. It's creating mobs that don't actually do justice. It's creating magistrates that don't actually care about justice. And it's Paul and Silas at the center of the story preaching Jesus Christ, who are preaching how to be real Romans.
Right.
They're like, we're the Roman citizen. Like in the story, they're the Romans. You want to be a real Roman? You have to believe in Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ sets the slave girl free. Jesus Christ heals, saves the jailer and his family in the middle of the night. Jesus Christ reestablishes justice in the land and real business and real civility in a land. And I think all of that applies. I'm doing a Roman version of exactly what you were saying a minute ago, James, which is that Jesus Christ is going to do the same thing for Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Jesus Christ is going to do the same thing for the United Arab Emirates. He's going to do that for all the nations of the earth. As you were talking earlier, I was thinking, the promise to Abraham was that in his seed, who is Jesus Christ,
that's right,
all the families and all the nations of the earth will be blessed, not destroyed, blessed, not obliterated, but healed, restored, and whatever needs to be stripped away, all the tumors and all the cancers, that's going to be taken away. And
he knows how to do that,
and he does that. But he heals and restores these nations so that they can actually come into the glory that he made them for, so that they can bring that glory into the New Jerusalem. But that's you're absolutely right. The gospel doesn't come and make everybody American.
That's right.
The gospel doesn't come and make everybody Western. The gospel comes and makes everybody human, and human as incarnated in the families and in the nations and in the cultures that God made them as. He loves Arabs. He loves people in India. He loves the people that bear his image in all these different nations. And he wants to see that sing. He wants to see that shine. He wants to see their sins removed and their idols taken away so that they can be what he made them to be. But that's glorious.
So in Isaiah 60 verse 6, it has this interesting description where it says that all the multitudes of Kedar, Nebaioth, Midian, Sheba will all come. Those are all the sort of Arab nations at the time, right? So that's equivalent to modern Saudi Arabia and Yemen. It says all these nations will come to Jerusalem bringing gold, incense, and good news.
Huh.
The gospel.
Yes.
So the Bible envisions a world where the gospel is coming from Saudi Arabia to Israel
Yes.
through people who know the truth.
Yes.
Like these are our future brothers.
Right.
And we have to invest in that way. So playing off what you're saying there about the image of God being in every culture, one thing that will put us to shame as Christians going there is the immense hospitality culture there.
Yeah.
I went my entire time in Riyadh. I managed to spend about $7. I didn't spend it like that was just drinks from a gas station for the car. Every meal, every night, everything was paid for by other people who treated me as if I was a member of their own family. And that is a bridge for the gospel, because I was talking to a Saudi and he said, the gospel doesn't make sense to me because because like, why would you not have to work? Like, why is it that you don't have to do good deeds in order to go to heaven? So I said, ever since I got in this country, no one has let me pay for a single meal. Why? Well, there's two reasons, right? First is because you genuinely love your guests here. The second reason is for the sake of your own honor. Because even if you didn't like someone, you'd still do this because that's who you are. And to be otherwise would be an insult to your reputation. In the same way, God doesn't let us do anything. Why? Because he's seeking both his own glory and he really loves us and wants to provide all this for us. And that made perfect sense to him in that moment. So you see this image of God in their culture. The highest expression of love in Saudi Arabic is to tell somebody, Fidetak, may I be sacrificed for you. Right? Things that are kind of foreign to Islam, but are there in their culture, which all point to Jesus.
Yeah. Wow.
What's your website, James, that people can go to and check out and see what you're doing, or maybe support you even?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find us, you can search the Al-Maida Initiative, but I bought a new URL, so we're easy to find. If you search muslimsandjesus.com, you can find us.
Nobody else had that?
Nobody else had that. We were the
first.
What about the plane?
What plane? Oh, yeah. Does Trump get to keep his plane? Should he keep his plane? What's going on with that?
I'll take it if he won't.
If Congress allows Trump to keep the plane, I think he can keep the plane, but it depends on who he gave it to, who they gave it to. Did he give it to America? Did they give it to Trump? Some of that stuff.
Did they give it to James Rayment?
James Rayment wants a plane. He can do lots of missionary work.
I'm second if Trump doesn't get it.
Yes.
I'm claiming it now.
Brother. Very grateful for you. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
What if you could join a network of business leaders who share your Christian values, who reject the separation of faith and business, and who have a fierce vision for success? Welcome to Business Makers Network, a network that strives to create community, build intellectual wealth and practical business knowledge, and grow thriving businesses for the kingdom. We're not just another business network. We are a community of unapologetic Christian leaders who understand that success in business blesses our customers, blesses our families and employees, and in the end drives greater profits. All of Christ for all our business efforts as we aim to take the talents God has given us and turn them into 30, 60, and 100-fold. With a combined net worth already exceeding $1 billion in committed memberships, our members are reshaping the business landscape while staying true to our Christian values and taking dominion in the lanes God has paid for us. As a member, you'll gain exclusive access to our Business Makers Network app, discounts to live workshop events, network calls with key influencers, access to like-minded Christian business leaders, a pool of hands-on intellectual wealth and practical business knowledge, mentorship and menteeship programs. We will be rolling those out over the coming year. Read-only access for the tier above you for educational purposes. Invitations to our annual corporate partner dinner. Networking events at the Fight Laugh Feast conference. We offer membership tiers designed to match your business journey. From our exclusive Double Diamond level for industry titans, to our green membership for promising startups, to our MVP tier that is looking for a community of Christian like-minded business leaders. There's a place for every serious business leader in our community. Your network is your net worth. Join Business Makers today and become a part of a movement that is changing the face of Christian business leadership. Visit our website now to secure your membership and step into a community where faith, business, and success